Hello once again and welcome to Sarva Gunn Sampann. I am beyond excited today to be welcoming on this show a woman who values empathy, honesty, continuous learning, progress, and meaningful giving. Some of her strengths include being competitive, being straightforward, compassionate. She's an out and out feminist and a dreamer. I'm so excited and delighted to welcome Shravanti to the show. Shravanti, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Anu. I'm delighted to be here. Beyond delighted, like you said. I am honored and delighted to be here with you and share a little bit of myself, pieces and parts that probably get lost in translation. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come before our friends and you.
You've been on my list for a long time now, and I'm so glad that we finally get to do this together. So let's get started with the show. Our first segment, you know, the drill is all about your childhood. It's Bachchpan ke din, and I would love to go back with you in time and learn all about your journey, starting from childhood all the way till your schooling.
So way back when, on a hot summer day in April, on April 23rd, I was born in Nilufar Hospital in Hyderabad, but we did not live in Hyderabad at that time. So mom and dad lived in Mahbubnagar, which is, I think, about 100 kilometers from the center of Hyderabad today. I know it's close to Uncle and Auntie's heart, Narayanmurthy Uncle's heart. And to you and Kiran as well. I remember a picture very vividly that you said you took it in Pillalamari in Mahbubnagar. So I think we went back to Mahbubnagar, and until I finished my third grade, we were there. And we lived in Newtown on the main road in Mahbubnagar, which I barely can recognize today when I go back, because it just isn't the place anymore. I remember being out on the street on the main road of Mahbubnagar, which was like the highway at that time, in my petticoat, riding bicycles and playing in sand. And growing up with two older brothers was a whole different world all in itself. But I fondly cherish spending time with friends and family in summers. And I don't recall much of winters or anything, but I do remember we had a lot of coconut trees in our front yard. So we, drank coconut water, ate tatimunjal, went to a lot of parks in Pillalamari, which had the biggest banyan tree that I think was in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana today at that time. So mom was a trained nurse, a trained lawyer, and a trained teacher. So she did a lot. She did a lot in 1 week and every day of her life. Dad was a physician. So my Nana had a very busy life. And just yesterday, I gave a speech as a homage to them because what would have been their 56th wedding anniversary. I know they're celebrating from up there, but last Saturday, October 21st, would have been their 56th. So I gave a speech in Toastmasters yesterday at another club in California, and I didn't know what else to call it. And I gave it a title called Conversations, Cards, and Community. My parents both loved conversations. They took time to entertain themselves and just have some quiet time at the end of the day. They used to play rummy a lot. So they played cards and spent time with each other at the end of each day. And then they loved community. That is, I think, something that stayed with us. Growing up, we were always out and about. That's really what I remember about growing up in Mahbubnagar, is being out with people all the time, whether it was on the grounds of the park, at the swings, or at the Lions Club, or in a I camp with Nana and Amma. I don't know what else, but I do remember a lot of connection, a lot of community, a lot of camaraderie and conversations. So that's pretty much about Bachchpan ke din. I finished third grade, and it just so happened that we moved to Hyderabad because my mom was given an appointment at the Social Welfare Board by the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi. And we moved to Hyderabad, and that was a very, very different landscape. So we pretty much grew up in a smaller town, and moving to a big city was pretty overwhelming. So I remember just the lights, the nighttime, and a lot of overwhelm and a little bit of fear. I then joined Keys High School for girls in Secunderabad. So from 4th until the 10th grade, I had a glorious, glorious time. And We do have a WhatsApp group now. Over 30 of us are in a group, and we still keep in touch. So to say that we've been friends for over 45 years now is something that just gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. So that's really my Bachchpan ke din. High school was a lot of sports. I was into athletics a lot of cerebral activity on one side, but a lot of activity on the playground on the other. I was not a big reader, but I was a lot about conversations, just like my parents were. I did connect with people at different lengths, and even today, I have to say, people energize me. I just love that connection, and you and I know how we get along well when we meet. So that's that about me.
There is this perception, general perception that you change, when you grow up. So children who are typically very quiet and shy grow up, to be
Sure.
extrovert, and then vice versa. Knowing you, you've been a dynamite the whole time, all throughout the years I've known you. How were you as a kid? What was your personality like?
I don't know about the dynamite part. I hope it is positive. I hope it is as explosive and positive as you probably make it out to be. But I was always like this. I don't think I have changed. Of course, the reasons why I'm like this today are a little more reflective. But even back then, growing up, I wanted to be the line leader. I was always the first one to raise my hand. I had no clue what I was raising my hand for, but I always raised it. And my hand was never bent at the elbow. I would raise it really high and go all in. So I think it was just about the people. For me, right from the start, I loved hanging out. I probably would be the only little baby hanging out else in the middle of the night, just because I just loved. I loved sitting in people's laps. I loved playing with them. I loved just tinkering with their mustache or their collar or I don't know, but I just loved being around people, and they excite me even today. There is, I think, a very wonderful, warm connection that I feel with humanity. And I'm not just saying this because I'm an adult today, but I think there's something very, very abundant, very wonderful, refreshing, and fulfilling about making that connection, knowing people, and receiving and giving that joy. I received more than I gave. I have to tell you that. Even as a child, even today, I think I receive a lot more than I give. But somehow I feel like it's coming to me, whether it was my Nana's good karma in the past, or whether it is a little bit of what I tend to give. I think it's beautiful. That's how I was, or at least I remember people telling me that that's how I was in the past, and those are the memories I have of running around, of jumping into people's laps, talking a lot, didn't know when to stop, and just being cheerful.
No, it's a delight. It's a delight to have you around, and can't thank enough. Give enough thanks to uncle and auntie for passing on those genes, because you are definitely a shining light in the community, and I'm so proud.
Thank you.
That's
I
wonderful.
miss them a lot. I do miss them a lot. I hope somewhere up there they're smiling today. But
yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about how close knit as a family were you? What were vacation times, family times like?
close knit, yes. So dad and mom were busy, but busy in a good way, right? They always made time for us, number one. Or something I found myself doing as a young mother is just taking the kids along. So they took us along to wherever they went. Like I mentioned, whether it was to an iftar dinner at one of the Khan Saab's place, or an uncle's place, or a Sankranti lunch to somewhere, or an eye camp, or a medical camp, or to the Lions Club meeting. I remember we being everywhere with them. So one of the ways that Amma and Anna doing the things that they did, figured out that they could still be there for us, is have us tag along with them. So I remember going every place with them. So that's really one of the ways that they made time. On the other hand, they made time for us by staying at home, by involving themselves in our activities, which growing up, when I was very young, I don't remember, but later on, even though they were busy, whether it was in their day jobs or their community service or their pastimes and passions within the community, I know they made time for us. I did learn a little bit of music, wasn't ever very good at it. I did learn dance from Ananda Shankar, for quite a bit through my high school years. I couldn't continue for several reasons, but I did learn dance, and I do have very, very fond memories of my time in Keys High School learning dance. I was into sports a lot. And mom and dad would show up every time there was a sports day. When I was sports captain, they were super proud, and I know they were in the audience. When I either lost a race or won a game, they were always there for me and my brothers, both my brothers. I went to a girls' school throughout, and you asked about vacations. Very interesting. We did not travel too much in India. We did go to Delhi quite a few times due to Amma's travel. We went to Chennai, we went to Bangalore, on and off, but travel was not a big. Now, one thing that was very big on our agenda every summer, was almost mandatory, was to go to my Amama's place, which was near Warangal. It was a small village called Kottur. So every Sankranti, which was in January, and every summer from April through June, all the grandkids, myself, my brothers, and all the cousins included, were packed off to go to Amama's place. And obviously, we never resisted or complained, because we would have unlimited outside time. Late into the night, we would have unlimited supply of mangoes. We would have unlimited, pampering by everyone around. So it was super good. And I still remember the mangoes and the honey were the two highlights. We would actually squeeze out honeycombs and eat fresh honey, and the mango season. So my mama tata and my mama and atta, they managed, and they owned and managed huge mango groves, which they still have. Mama tata are gone, but my mom still does that. So I'm hoping someday I'll take Apurva and Pooja also and go, which I did when they were very young, but not after that.
You bring back so many fond memories. I
Mm.
think people in our generation, they'll all be able to relate to that. Eating those mangoes, spending time,
Mhm.
summer vacations at grandmother's place. And I'm sure, things happen now as well. I mean, children have their way, but I just feel somehow I'm very biased towards our childhood.
What I now we are so sensitive to weather and outdoors and all of that. Then I remember the temperatures were like, I don't even recall how hot they were, but opening the door meant that you would get sunstroke. It was that hot. Even some days were really hot, but it never bothered us. Right? We'd hydrate ourselves, drink some mango juice or lemonade or whatever, homemade lemonade. Right? We did have trees, and we plucked fresh lemons. We made lemonade. We carried it and went to there was a cheruvu, like a lake, like a free-flowing river / lake, and then we would go play every day. So to me, not having gadgets, not having much dependency on anything outside, but to feel fulfilled from within and find new ways of doing something creatively. We would weave baskets, and we would make the paper plates, vistarakulu. So
Yes.
the plates that we made, we actually used to pluck leaves and actually sew
Yeah.
the plates out of leaves, modugakulu. So those were the ones we used to do. So to me, childhood was all about being outdoors, exploring, making those connections. So
Thank you so much for sharing that from your childhood, that very special piece that you carry in your heart. We'll move on from here to the next phase in your journey, which is Ye Kahaan Aa Gaye Hum. And this is once you entered adulthood, so 18 and onward.
I know I'm using a lot of Telugu words. So we spoke Telugu at home, and growing up in Hyderabad, since I was 7, a lot of Urdu and Hindi made way into my life. So college was, I went to an all-girls school, as I mentioned. I went to Keys High School in Secunderabad. Soon after, I went to Kasturba Gandhi College, also all girls again. Little exposure outside of my brothers and my friends and all of that to co-ed education or mingling. I studied life sciences, and while I was there, I think something clicked in me, and I wanted to be a teacher. Growing up, I thought I wanted to be a doctor because I saw my nana. I had so much admiration for my dad and what he did, and how he just, at the blink of an eye, saved a life or delivered a baby or did this or that. And everyone used to say, "Oh my God, Dr. Saab, it is because of you, and you did this, and thank you so much." I just loved the honor and the accolade. And then somehow I figured I wanted to be a doctor. But when I was 18-ish, like, at the cusp of figuring out who I was, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I really thought I wanted to be a teacher. So after I finished what we call intermediate +2, right after my 10th at Kasturba, I wrote my entrance for B.Ed. So over 1 lakh people write that entrance. I was fortunate enough to secure a rank that was in the 50s, which was a total shock to me. And I said, okay, then I'm really, so whatever I was dreaming of wasn't as crazy, because I guess I'm cut out for this. So again, not that I knew anything about anything, but I suddenly made that connection in my mind that my dream wasn't as crazy because I secured a good rank, and here I am. So of all the choices I had, for the very first time, for some reason, I chose to go to St. Anne's College of Education in Secunderabad. Now, that was, for me, going to a very traditional Madaliyar school growing up, being in a more traditional Hindu setting, going from there to consciously making a choice to go to St. Anne's, which was more convent, which was more I wouldn't say religiously more Christian oriented, but there was this bent of service, of prayer, and all of that included during my day. So I don't know why I made that choice, but Anu, I will say that was a game changer for me. I don't know what guided me to make that choice. Because of a better rank, I had a huge selection of colleges that I could apply to and go to. But I chose St. Anne's, and I truly, today, I don't know why, but that made all the difference. You know how that they say one step or one choice makes all the difference? To me, a lot of who I am today, I think, got started at St. Anne's. So it was the kindness of our principal, the head nun. It was the insight and the reflective nature, and the whole commitment to teaching from all our lecturers who were there at St. Anne's, and the real opportunity to not just read from textbooks, but also to apply and to take field trips and to go teach part-time, so as to get that experience during our studying years. Somehow completely transformed my thinking. I did very well, not just in terms of grades and stuff, but I did very well in self-discovery. That was the first time that I actually felt, man, I have a little more to offer than a better grade, or I can run as fast as somebody else in 100 meters. So those were like just some things I did without thinking too much. But this was a very provocative exercise for me in self-discovery. So that's what came out of St. Anne's. After that, I was convinced I wanted to be a teacher. So I wrote another entrance, and I secured a seat in Arts College, and I went on to study English literature. So today, that's definitely not what I do, but as a career, which we will get to talk about, as you said. But I studied English literature for 2 years. That was the very first time I did a few things, right? So number one, I traveled the farthest. We used to live in Amirpet. It still exists today, right? We used to live in Amirpet. So going to Secunderabad to Keys was far. Then I was right around there with going to Kasturba and St. Anne's. But now I was many miles far away from that to go all the way to Arts College in Tarnaka, which was like the farthest I had ever traveled to go to school. It was really far, but for the first time, that was different. It was really far, number one. Number two, for the very first time in my life, I was in a co-ed environment. So I was with, in a larger school. I mean, it's larger than I could imagine. It is an imposing structure. If ever anyone gets a chance to go see Arts College, I think it is so beautiful. It is wonderful to behold. It was even more wonderful to be part of those, walk those hallways and be part of some of the legacy that has come out of that institution. I felt super proud. So it was intimidating to be with boys and in a co-ed environment, but to me, the focus was on, again, immersing myself in the language, immersing myself in becoming the teacher I dreamt to be. So that's really what college meant. I did well, I guess. I graduated, and a little after my exam results came out, I was to be married and shipped off to America. So that was really the climax of, and the end of a whole era in India. I was about 23 years old at that time. So we got married on February 12th, died around 24th. I came to what I absolutely did not like, very gray and very cold Dayton, Ohio. So that's really where I landed. And 28 plus years, I'm still in Ohio. Talk about not one for change, right? I am still in Ohio after all those years. But I did come to Dayton in February, end of February of 1995. That was a long time ago. I've officially lived a lot longer in the United States than I have in India. I did not work in India other than helping tutor some of the economically disadvantaged students during high school and college, or helping in community service endeavors here and there. I had never worked really in India. So I did not know how to manage myself. I did not know how to go about prioritizing, organizing, and all of that as far as jobs were concerned. Now, I was a chronic volunteer growing up, which I probably didn't mention. I really was. So that raising of hand never did go away. So I used to raise my hand for everything. And that's really what got me to continue to connect with people, continue to find that joy that I truly even endeavor. I wake up every day saying, where else can I find joy? Where else can I connect with people? As crazy as it sounds, that really does get me out of bed today. So when I came here, I was quite lost, I have to say. So Mohan was super supportive. He said I didn't have to work, no pressure. I could enjoy myself, find my bearings, and just he didn't put any pressure on me. But I felt lost because, number one, my suitcases didn't come. So we arrived here, but my suitcases got lost in travel. And when he said, it's okay, they'll reimburse us for the suitcases, I'm like, that's the only memory I have that has a connection to home. I need my suitcases. I don't care for the $500 they're going to give us. So that was funny. I still remember, I remind him every once in a while, I didn't care for the 500 American Express was going to reimburse us, but I needed every little item that was in those two suitcases, because that was all I had to remind me of home, like all of 8,400 miles away.
I'm
right?
curious, did you get
those suitcases?
Did you get them back?
I did. They arrived the next day. Luckily for me, I cried pretty much like all night that day as we went grocery shopping. I remember going to Cub Foods that night. And I also remember asking him if I could buy 2 nail polishes because they were only $1.60 something. $1 was $32 rupees at that time, long time ago. Gas was 86 cents. Gas was 86 cents in Dayton. I remember that. What else? Yeah, I
milk was more expensive than gas. Milk was, I think.
Milk was a lot more expensive than gas at that time. Yeah, a gallon was 86 cents or maybe even less than that, maybe 83.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was in the 80s. It was in the 80-cent range. I remember that. So I don't know. What I would have done. But the first year in Dayton was very interesting. Like I said, I was lost. There was only one family friend that we had, Ajay and Pushpa, who are still our dear, dear friends. And Ajay Bhaiya's mom and dad lived in Dayton at that time. They still do. So I used to go invite myself to their house every time. Auntie used to make dal dokli. And then I would eat dal dokli. I would chat with her. I would feel like, okay, Amma Nana are still around and I can feel the warmth of home. And Ajay and Pushpa's little boys, who are very, very big, handsome men now, were very little babies at that time. So I would play with them and entertain myself and then come back home. So that was the first year in Dayton. That was the first year in Dayton. And on our very first anniversary, the following February, we moved to Cleveland, where you and I live today.
So then what happened? You talked about, the initial challenges, not liking, going from not liking to now 28 long years. So what was the next step? You said you were lost. You didn't know what you wanted to do. Volunteering was definitely something that you were considering or perhaps doing. How did you take those initial steps into the world of work? How did you break into it? Talk to me about what kind of education did you pursue, if any, and how did you get to where you are today?
So, like if you think of left brain, right brain kind of people, right? I was into English literature. I wrote a little bit of poetry. I wanted to be a teacher. And here I was not knowing if anyone would even entertain, right, me talking about being a teacher. Because in my own mind, I know, I have to be very honest, and I say this unabashedly today, because way back when, then in 1995, 1996 timeframe, I, for one, did not even have an ounce of courage to even entertain the idea that someone would hire a non-native speaker of English to teach the language, right? So to me, it was not just about what I wanted to do. It was just about not having the courage to even think about what I wanted to do, because I was lost, like, as I said. So when we moved to, and even when we were in Dayton, I remember, and I wrote this in one of the essays for a book that was published on analytics. I wrote an inspirational story of how I got introduced to numbers and technology, and how I made way into who I am today as a professional. So going back to that time, there was still dial-up modem. So I would dial up through a very, what today would be considered a dinosaur of a computer, which we were still paying for every month. We paid so much for that computer, thousands of dollars then, doing dial-up and reading on Usenet groups, right? User groups on servers that resided in some universities somewhere around the world, articles, and catching up with what was going on in technology. And that was fascinating. We didn't even have cell phones at that time. So after I moved to Cleveland, the lingering thought that I was being unproductive. What do I do with my life? And what is going on? So with that came also, right around 97, 98-ish, 96, 97-ish, right? The year 2000 surge had already started a little bit, right? Everyone was talking about year 2000 and jumping on the bandwagon, and everyone was equipped except me, right? I felt ill-equipped to even pursue anything other than just stay home, watch some TV, make my beds, maybe cook and wait for Mohan to come home, or just go to the temple in the evening, or go to the mall. Other than that, I felt entirely unproductive, right? Unproductive in the sense that I wasn't doing anything with my past education. I wasn't doing anything with being creative or doing something that would produce something that I could be proud of. So I decided at that time, that maybe I should go study something to get into what they call the computer science or the IT realm of things, right? I didn't even know what all that meant, but I said, hey, everybody seems to be doing it, so maybe I should try it too. So I did. I registered at the Lakeland Community College, right? I didn't even say I would go to a university. I said, if it is just a skill, let me give it a try. I registered at community college for the associate's program in computer science, and something that I think you and I talk about often is when you set your mind to something. And I remember the first time you and I talked way back when, many, many years ago at the temple, and you said, how did you land in IT? Maybe is this really what you wanted to do? I don't know if you recall, you asked me that question. I said, I have no idea either. But here is something I knew, right? I wanted to be productive. I like a good challenge. And I said, if I attempted something I had no idea about, and if I succeeded, what more would I need to serve as a booster for my self-confidence for the rest of my life? And that's really the challenge that I took on. I said, throw a few books at me. We had to swipe a credit card to send me to college because we didn't have money to pay for it too, right? So we said, okay, swipe the credit card, pay for the fees, and go to college. So I did do very well. I said, I'm good, hardworking student. I'm going to put my mind to it. We printed out from Hello World programs to database systems to analytics to accounting, learning a little bit about numbers and finance and all of that. I did study, and I got a lucky break. I have to say, I got a lucky break. And guess what gave me the break was my bachelor's in education and my master's in English, because there was a small firm at that time that was looking for Microsoft certified trainers. So because I needed a visa sponsored, they said, hey, here is a person who's actually a trained teacher, right? Her credentials are stellar. And they said, if you can get yourself certified in Microsoft technologies, at that time it was Visual Basic and MCT and MCSD, all of that whole path, right? If you can get yourself these certifications, we can complement that with your bachelor's and master's in English and bachelor's in education, and we will file for your visa. Again, we swiped the credit card and said, okay, let's file for the visa. And that was my lucky break into IT. Was I joined as a Microsoft certified trainer to train while I was actually getting my feet wet in application development, in Visual Basic. What was Visual Basic at that time, right? So when I think back, the desire to teach, the desire to educate came to my rescue, and I still do that today. What started out as a Microsoft certified trainer kind of job where I was delivering Microsoft training, which I couldn't even fathom the idea of me training in technologies, right? Training someone else in technologies. I myself was new to it, but I did. So the summary of this whole story is that when we put our mind to it, when we are given a challenge and we are desirous of solving it and give it our all, I don't think there is anything that's impossible. I'm not saying it was easy, but I'm saying it was definitely possible. And that was only because, number one, I wanted to do it. Number two, I had the support of friends and family. And number three, I had the right opportunity and a break.
Right. And you know, the what you're sharing is also very relevant to many folks out there who have similar backgrounds, who have the aptitude and the passion for training, for teaching. And then there are companies that are happy to teach those technical skills, but they struggle to find talent for training. So I think it's a match made in heaven when you have the ability and, like you said, you know, the determination. Just the ability to carry on and pick up any new skill. And technology is also a different language, right? At the end of the day, but the fact that you were able to match that with your innate passion for and talent for teaching, you landed that opportunity. So not just luck, I think it was also, you know, a great fit.
It was, but I do take luck into consideration because, you know, I don't know what it is, but I cannot discount the opportunities that I get. Yes, I'm always looking for them. And for those of us who are constantly looking, we do end up finding opportunities. But for that company to say, hey, we see something in you, I think it's valuable. You have a gift for this, but then we are going to turn it into an opportunity which can be lucrative for you. You can get a paycheck out of it, and we can take advantage of your gifts, was something that I was just very fortunate to have come my way, right? I never discount that because, you know, one lucky break is all you need. And today, that was 1997. So today, you know, 2007, 17, 26 years later, I am an IT professional, and I do everything that people who had a foundation in computer science and technology do now. Do I do that as well as they could, or they should, or they would? That the jury is still out on it, but that I got a break, and that I applied myself very sincerely to my work and to my learning is where I am today.
So that is wonderful. Talk to me a little bit about the family life. So you had your children, very precious kids along the way, and you broke into the workforce. So you were working for this company. What was that whole experience like?
So I did get that for several years after my first job. So that was my first job, and for several years after that, until 2007. So from 1997 to 2007, the first 10 years, I worked as a consultant at various companies. So I worked as a consultant at 2 companies, but I was, you know, planted at various places, just like all consultants are. So in doing so, I learned, number one, about different kinds of people, different kinds of companies, their cultures. I upskilled, skilled leftward, rightward, forward, backward, right? I did everything it took for me to be successful, which I didn't even know. There was no framework in my mind that said, if you do this, you would succeed. So I started doing everything. I started learning about people, learning about frameworks, learning about technologies, learning about how cultures are built, how systems work, how processes are. So I was fortunate again for in each of these companies, I had the backing And one of the things I have learned as a consultant, and I continue to learn, is how important relationships are, how important clear, honest, and humble and hungry communication is, right? So to me, that connection with people came full circle for me. I'm like, I love doing this and people seem to appreciate it, but what they are looking for is clarity and honesty. So people, when they engage with you and you seek people out and you seek to give back and learn with clarity and honesty, I think people will go all out to help you. And I was fortunate again, very grateful for that, that every time I set out to do something, I had the backing. It's almost like the universe was working in my favor. And when I say the universe is working in my favor, I do want to humbly submit that it wasn't easy. But again, I repeat, right? It was possible. So that's been the constant refrain in my mind that I keep going through, right? It's possible. It's possible. When you go about it the right way, the universe will come together for you. So that worked out well. So raising two kids in the first 10 years, right? I had two beautiful girls, right? Apurva and Pooja, who are now 25, and Pooja will be 19 on Tuesday. So 2 days from now. So 25 and almost 19. So they grew up with us, just like Amma Nana did. I remember taking them everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't even know that I was, now that I'm saying it to you, and these past few years since they've grown up, I've reflected and said, hey, I ended up doing exactly what mom and dad did with us, right? I took them everywhere. Instead of making an excuse for not doing some of those things, whether it was a pastime, whether it was persuasion or a passion to pursue something. And I did not ever subscribe, because I had wonderful examples in my own parents and all of the people I admired. I did not have to put my own interests and passions on the back burner to be a parent. That is something that I think we talk about often, you and I, every time we meet. But that is something that is a misnomer, right? To be a good parent, that you have to take leave of every other passion and persuasion and pastime that you have. Not true. Not true at all. And I will say again, is it easy? No. But we don't wake up to do just what is easy. We wake up to do what is wonderful and challenging and empowering, right? So to me, that was a thing. So I took them everywhere. I remember emceeing with Pooja on my hip. I remember holding Apurva from running away and Pooja on my hip and doing the thing and serving food and cleaning up, learning from others, taking classes, finishing WBTs. That truly was my life, and I wouldn't have it any other day. If I were to do it all over again, yeah, sure, I could have been better here and there. We all have those opportunities. The girls will tell you, Mohan will tell you probably, that I could have done a few things differently. But I bet you at the end of the day, they wouldn't have it any other way either. Because of the things that we continued to pursue, our lives are richer. We are better people as a unit, right? You asked about family. So as a unit, I think we are better because we supported each other, because we realized, same thing, right? If Mohan wanted to pursue his MBA while the girls were still little, we helped, right? If the girls wanted to do something different, for everyone, the other three. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the most wonderful, the most valuable, and the most passion forward community support that I have had. I just owe a great deal to everyone who is listening, to everyone who I know is in my mind and prayers each day. So I will say, as a professional, as a mom, as a person with very many interests, it almost seems impossible that we can do everything, but I am here to tell you that yes, you can, right? If you go about it the right way, and if you don't really put everything on the back burner, because this is my closing thought on this, and I say it very humbly, is all of this is a complement to our parenthood, complement to our professional growth, complement with the E, right? They're only bolstering what we do at work, what we do at home, and what we do at the community. They don't take away, because we are enjoying the diversity, because we are enjoying learning about people, their motivations, and also stretching ourselves to achieve that next level that we set out to achieve, I think it can be fun. I think it's a lot of fun. And as the world would have us believe that it is draining, it's actually empowering. It's actually energizing. It doesn't drain us because it's in how we think about it. Even for the things that we embark on, where we have all the details, we are shocked with stuff that we didn't expect. So I say, might as well take a chance, right? What do we have to lose? We just might not succeed. That's all. I mean, we could, for having tried, we could be enormously successful. And 9 out of 10 times, that's what happens. You could be enormously successful for having just taken that beautiful chance that came your way.
I really appreciate that. I think that is a very important point that you make. And to have a supportive family that saw what made you happy and just going with in that direction along with you must have been extremely encouraging and just great to have. So wonderful. On that note, Shravanti, let's now look at your work, your profession. This is our segment Kaam Ki Baat, and here I want you to talk about what you do. And so you also talk to us about the trajectory, where you've been, what you've studied to get to this point. But what are the skills that you bring to the table? What kind of an impact do you have on your workplace? I know your personality spills into it, a lot of your passions and a lot of your interests, which are something that I cannot wait to discuss in our next segment, which is your X Factor. But I know that it plays a very important part in your work, in your day-to-day work, in the way you deal with people at work, and what you bring to the table. So talk to me a little bit about your work.
My work. So as I mentioned, I think when I mentioned Lakeland and going and taking courses, I took special interest in data, right? Although my personality is that of being a people person, I'm your, analytical person as well as the people person. So I'm a people person with a data perspective. That's how I introduce myself to people. So because my personality is a high interactive socializer and a steady relator, if you look on the disc, I am not a driver, but I am quite a bit of a cautious thinker, although I don't look like that, right? I'm a very reflective thinker, but I'm an interactive socializer. So that's really my most dominant trait. But when I went to school, somehow I was super fascinated with numbers. So I decided that's the route I would take, in spite of my exposure to training and coaching, which inherently I was interested in right from when I really figured out what I wanted to do during my bachelor's of education years. I was trained on data and analytics. So in my initial years, I did a little bit of application development. A lot of what was then collaborative technology, SharePoint was just coming into. I did active server pages, ASP. I did a little bit of everything, but data warehousing, and analytics is where I really landed, right? Data appealed to me in a way that nothing else appealed to me. And the reason I think I discovered many years later that data appealed to me is because it led to action. And I'm a person who wants to solve a problem, lead to something that can take us from point A to point B, right? So I don't really get excited about building a monolith. I get excited about small, iterative, and insightful actions. And that's really what did it for me. So data and analytics was huge in getting me excited about my work life. So I took all the trainings. I went to every conference. I begged to be sent to conferences, and I said, I'm going to bring back learnings. I'll be your best, advanced analytics person. I will be your best data warehouse developer. I will be your best report writer. I'll be your best systems analyst. I wore many hats in the first 10 years. So if there are less tenured professionals listening today, I want to say, take those chances, because you'll never really figure out in day one or as soon as you graduate what your special interest might be or what you might really be good at. Two different things, right? What you may be really good at is not necessarily what excites you. We learn so many skills, right? But what really excites you is what will get you out of bed every day. Data and meaningful action excite me. Connecting with people excite me. That's what gets me out of bed. Results excite me. Achievement excites me. So that's the motivation. So as soon as we figure that out, it becomes easy. So long story short, first 10 years, that's what I did. And today I work at Progressive Insurance, a Fortune 100 company. I'm supremely fortunate again to have had that opportunity many years later. 2007, like I said, 97 to 2007. In 2007, when I joined Progressive, I joined a team of 6 people. We used to endeavor, at least, to solve all of Progressive's data problems then. We're a huge company, right? We revere data like probably very few technology companies do. We really do. So we grew. We grew from that team of 6 to a team of 10 to a team of 50 to a whole platform today that actually supports data and analytics. So I learned. I leaned into my work. I took on mentorship. I learned. I stretched myself, all while raising our girls and both of us working and not giving up my passions and my hobbies and my pastimes, which included a lot of service and volunteer work. But on the professional front of things, there is no escape or there is no shortcut to hard work. I would say doing the work that is required to excel and having that desire to excel were primary for me. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but most immigrants, we really have a different outlook towards what we define as success and what we are willing to give to be successful. I'm just like all of us, right? So I was willing to give everything to be successful, although I couldn't completely define what successful meant. I just was hungry because successful to me was a moving target. If I'm successful today, successful meant something else tomorrow. So I did that. And in doing so, I also alluded to clarity in communication and collaboration. I want to come back to that. Today, I manage a very talented team of 4 different job families. I'm in product development, that close to making or breaking bank for our very big insurance company, right? So obviously, I'm not going at it alone. I have, we all have organizations supporting these kinds of business priorities. But one of the things that comes in handy every single time is that clarity in communication, that honesty in your approach to work, and that collaboration, seeking people out, honoring their gifts, valuing their contributions. So whether I am a title leader or just an influencer or just a technologist, I bring those to the forefront. Again, learning about the business. So people management, people leadership is not just about managing work. It is about inspiring people, helping them grow, helping them get to that next step, perhaps helping them get to where I am today so I can move on too in doing so, right? So we are all on this continuum.
Yeah.
So hard work, learning the skills, adapting and learning new technologies. So if we are at a point where we are fully invested only in technical leadership or fully in whatever area of focus, right? I'm speaking about technology and people leadership in a technology-driven company in a finance industry. But wherever we are, right, we have to find our niche. And I'm also a big believer, and you know this too, Anu, a big believer of working from our gifts. One of my gifts that you mentioned is positivity. So my positivity, my developer attitude, my high responsibility and high accountability attitude is something I bring to the forefront. In doing so, I'm not only going farther, far faster, but I'm also putting myself out there and saying, if I'm ever pulling you down or not being empathetic or not bringing you the value that you deserve, call me out, because that's the only way for me to learn also. So being humble and being transparent is one of the things that I have learned in leadership, is a sure way to get to that point B from wherever you set out.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps explain what I do.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. I think you've really explained it very well. The points about honesty, about transparency, very clear. The one question I have about you is you talk about clarity. Do you want to elaborate a little more about what that means? Because when you talk about clarity, is it that you're approaching everything from a point where you're crystal clear about everything? Or is this having clarity in the way you think about things and communicate, even if you don't have the answer? So I'm trying to kind of get a sense for what you mean when you talk about clarity.
Absolutely. And I forgive me for not elaborating on that. I do think clarity comes from, first of all, our desire to understand whatever the matter is. I don't even say problem, right? Whatever the matter is at hand, our desire to understand it fully. To understand it fully, what we do is, number one, I keep saying, apply yourself first. And then you listen. When we work in teams, it's important to actively listen, not necessarily to always come to consensus, but to make sure that you are willing to take in diverse perspectives, because we all have blind spots. Clarity comes when we work on our blind spots, and working on our blind spots is only possible when we invite diverse perspectives. Right? So getting to the bottom of it, sometimes some of these things, to get to clarity, the level of clarity that is required, depending on how high stakes it is, right, requires research, requires people with different skills, different gifts, different talents, and requires active listening, especially in a leadership position, wherever you are, right? It takes listening. And then when we take all of this into account, we are now clear about how do we proceed to get to that point B, right? And sometimes I have learned, and I was just alluding to this in a EI panel that was on this morning, is sometimes it's not about finding answers to the questions. Many times I have learned is we have to question if we are actually asking the right question. A lot of times I have been humbled, I have to say. I thought I was headed in the right direction, but until I took a step back, involved other people, dug deep, and did the research that was necessary and actively listened, I did not even realize that we weren't even asking the right question. We were only trying to find answers for the questions we knew we had to ask. So that's what I meant by clarity. And then the honesty that goes with clarity is to say, I don't know, to say, I am sorry, to appreciate when you hear something good, and to say it is okay, and to take that risk and forgive a mistake or a failure and use that as a stepping stone to get to that next level. So clarity and honesty go hand in hand in my mind.
Yeah. And thank you
Did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. You answered it so well. And the other thing is that these are skills that you don't just use when you become a leader. These are skills that are relevant all the way, from when you start the job, right? So when you're talking about clarity, you talk about humility, you talk about honesty, asking the right questions, and then saying sorry when something goes wrong because you made some assumptions that may have been faulty. So these are not just limited to a leadership position, but also for somebody that's just starting out. So thank you so much for explaining all that, Shravanti. Talk to me a little bit about your interest in equity, diverse inclusion, and diversity. I know you do a lot within Progressive with these initiatives that you're part of, and I'm inclined to believe that all of this goes way back to your college days, to the early influence you had studying in that convent. How do these play out in your profession? How do you find opportunities and avenues where you get involved in these kinds of initiatives? So very curious to hear about that.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked, and we need a whole day just for this topic, but I'll try to be brief. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Diversity is just even understanding that we're all different people. It is all around us if we only take time to know and recognize and utilize and leverage it. Right? We are all as different as we can be. So diversity is not just about how we look, how we think, but also about how we feel, how we act, how we process information, how we learn. So when, especially you said in a professional front, and I will extrapolate this to at home, in the community, in our nonprofit work, in the temple, in the church, in the mosque, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. Diversity is implicit to our existence, right? Diversity of thought, diversity of action, diversity of learning, diversity in in our backgrounds, in our culture, in our hopes, aspirations, and desires. Knowing that diversity is implicit. Now we have to think how, if diversity is implicit, how am I going to get to that next step with this diversity? Because we can't all agree, but we can all agree that unless we include everyone intentionally, we're really not going to get to that better place with a solution or with an ideal landscape that's good for all, right? So that's why we must actively include. Same thing at the workplace. I alluded to including others' perspectives in coming to a decision-making, point, right? That including others' perspectives. And same thing with whether you are really calling it diversity, equity, and inclusion, or saying I am checking the box on my D&I competency or not. You are implicitly recognizing that we are all different people, and our success depends on our ability to include others. Our success depends on being empathetic. Our success depends on productively engaging with others. And now when I look at that, and we tend to confuse also, there is the E part, right? Equality versus equity. Equality is treating everyone the same. Equity is saying that we are going to make sure that everyone has the same opportunities afforded to them based on where they are. Yes, right? So they're two different things. And that is something that we must not only recognize, but do everything in our power to make opportunities equitable to all, right? Not treat everyone equally, but to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity, depending on wherever they are. So my work at Progressive, I'm very grateful for that, is that I am part of many different initiatives. I also serve on the Network for Empowering Women. I had the good fortune of being a founder member for the network, for the Asian American Network at Progressive. So that was my start almost 10 plus years ago. That's where I got started. Even before I knew what D&I meant, I think as you alluded to, growing up, Amanana set such a fantastic example just by their being, right? So to me, it was in my DNA. I was fortunate that way, that it was in my DNA to be with other people, to connect, to be humbled many times, right? Because we didn't always do everything right, but we learned the more difficult and the challenging way, that there are better ways of doing things. And that's only when we connect with other people, when we welcome their perspectives. With that said, I do think I've developed this voice that is as strong as it is vulnerable, and I'm not afraid to speak my truth and live it. And that is because of the empowerment I get from people at work, I get from people in the community, and I myself really truly reflect and endeavor each day to get to that better place for myself, and hopefully not hurting, harming anyone around me. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what I receive in return.
And you should also be very proud about having the courage, having the conviction, and being bold enough to take that step forward and say that you want to do something, and this is what your intention is. So I think some of your honesty and clarity comes, plays a part therein as well. So thank you, Shravanti, for talking about that. I think it's extremely important that we have people like you who are leading not just within your organizations, but also in the community, and really talking about these issues, taking them head on, because not a lot of people are willing to do that. It's not something that everybody's comfortable with. But then that is where I think you make a difference. So thank you so much for doing that. All right. So we'll go on to our next segment, which is your X Factor. And here, I want the world to see your personality and the impact that you have in the community. You are involved in so many different committees, organizations, you volunteer for so many causes. So I have a few questions. How do you do it all? How do you keep it straight? And how do you keep it coming? How do you continue to give? And there's never a moment when I've not seen you, your 100% energized self. It's always fascinating for me to see that. So I want to know all about it. How do you do it? And where is this all coming from?
The honest answer is I have no idea. No, the honest answer truly is I have no idea. But I have reflected, because you're not the first person, and you know that. You're not the first person to ask, and I say this again humbly. I think we tend to think we manage time. We tend to think we manage time, but what we really manage is energy, right? So I think just being naturally positive, just being grateful, just being humble and honest. With being those, I think I relieve myself of a lot of burden or baggage that we tend to carry, which deplete us in our energies. There is truly a wellspring of energy that comes from within, and that's really what I count on, right? As grateful as I am to what comes to me from the outside, I count on the wellspring that comes from within. So to me, that management comes through managing my energy, staying positive, assuming good intentions, doing my very best. Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements, right? Always do your very best. Don't take anything personally, assume good intentions. And those kinds of things are really what help me do the things that I do. And to me, my experience with Toastmasters, coupled or complemented by everything else that I bring to the table, is what makes all of this possible. I say that because in my experience, in my involvement with Toastmasters, I have been reading from this human library for the past 10 years, right? Every time I attend a meeting, every time I connect with someone, every time I hear a story, we are forcing ourselves in a way, right? We are forcing ourselves to find our voices, even though in a closed room, even though with a select set of people. So whenever I see someone endeavoring to do what they do well, to find their voice, even though they're wearing this blanket of fear and they're tongue-tied, they're endeavoring and they're finding, and we are giving and receiving feedback. All of that truly makes all of this worth it. So if you ask me how do I get it all done, God knows I don't get it all done, although I seem to have this nice attitude that looks like I'm getting it all done. But I will say, yes, I get most of it done. And it goes back to how I manage my energy, how I'm just being honest, right? Just being honest and upbeat and positive about the difference that you and I can make. Because I truly believe we shouldn't carry the burden of this lack of belief that we can't change something, right? Even for ourselves, we don't have to change the whole world, but we must believe we can change something about our own existence. And that's enough, right? When we do believe that, I think it is that multiplier effect. If I believe and you are hearing it, we both believe, and we are going to make another person believe. And so as a community, we are all multipliers all at once. So I think that's the power of believing, of being honest and humble, and continuously learning and evolving. So I don't think I have any special gifts per se, but I do believe that there is positive energy in this world. There is joy to be had and abundance to be enjoyed. Yeah. And that truly drives me. We must have a personal code of conduct, right? That's really, I care very deeply about my energies and my commitments, first to myself. So we talk about self-care and self-discipline, and that you said we would allude to it.
Yes.
So I'm segueing into it. I think part of my self-care routine is to first and foremost be accountable to myself and my values. So if I have personal values, which I do, right? Like you mentioned, honesty, first and foremost, positivity, honesty, humility. These are the values that I think if I am not checking myself against them every single day and holding myself accountable, then a part of my personal care is tarnished. Because we don't think about personal care. We think about personal care as going and taking a class in yoga or doing a meditation, which I think I do too, right? I don't take classes in yoga, but I do meditate every day, but I'll get to it. We don't think of our self-care in these terms. of keeping small commitments to ourselves. So that is the self-discipline I think we need to practice. And one of the things that I do every single day is to check myself. Before I go to bed, I say, did I wrong anyone today? Did I take care of myself? Did I empower myself and others? We always say, oh, did I empower others? Did I give back? No, I look at myself too. Did I empower myself? Did I do something for me too? To me, that is what will get me out of bed tomorrow. If I am completely depleting myself day in and day out for others, I will feel exhausted. Burnout is imminent. But if I pay myself back just a little bit, like how you contribute to 401k, you contribute to yourself first before you give out charity, right? You take care of yourself first. So I think I think about self-care a little differently. Now, could I hit the treadmill a few more times? I agree. Yes, I don't do that as well as I do this other stuff, right? So emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, I think I stay very disciplined. I keep my emotions clear. If I'm sad, I say it, I label it correctly. If I'm sad, I say I'm sad. If I'm disappointed, I say I'm disappointed. If I'm exuberant, I actually say, yeah, I'm happy. I don't say I'm happy. I am exuberant is what I say. I try to label my emotions appropriately. I'm not shy. So that's how I keep those in check. Spiritually, I am fairly religious, but I'm more spiritual. I think about humanity, right? I think about this not because I can solve the world's problems, but because I feel responsible. So spiritually, I have that self-discipline to check myself every night and say, did I do something for myself and for the world? And mentally, I say I'm very active in terms of learning. I'm not just saying I'm active because I'm out and about and I'm spread thin all over the place. I'm very active mentally. Activity does not mean exhaustion because I choose my mental activity very carefully. I indulge in the things that give me joy, that give me satisfaction, and that gives me fulfillment. I don't indulge in the things that are unproductive. For example, I don't indulge in gossip. Sure, we all joke and we say, and exchange this and that about friends and family. And we entertain ourselves a little, but nothing that borderlines on negativity, nothing that borderlines on demeaning anyone or dishonoring anyone. I keep that in check because that is important for my mental health. So when you talk about self-care, surely, physically, I do have an opportunity. I take my multivitamins, I keep my mental, emotional, and spiritual health really in good shape. And that may be the reason why I think I feel light enough to be able to do more in the same amount of time, because I have a little more energy that did not get spent on things that are non-value adds. And to me, living our truth is important. And you touched on something, and I think this is important. Just last night, I was talking to a couple of friends, and even this morning, I don't have internet at home, so I'm at a friend's place today, and I was speaking with her today, and I said, we tend to create these barriers for ourselves. I think we must give ourselves a little more license to be free, right? And we imagine so much, and I think we overproduce and put our minds in overdrive. Just thinking too much. If we just let go and go back to when we were children and how free we were, I think there is nothing stopping us from being that way, right? Enjoying, knowing that the world, is very complicated. That I think is a barrier that we let come in our way every single time. But unless we let go of it, we really cannot solve the complexity of the world. I think it almost seems counterintuitive, but it is true though, right?
Yeah.
When we simplify stuff and whittle things down to a level where we can still be the children that we were, that creativity and the juices don't start to flow. But we already know that there is a complex world out there, but then we let that stop us from being the free spirits that we really are. So I think it's this or that. I don't know how to solve that. But definitely, unless we let go of it and give ourselves the license to be free, I think we really cannot solve this complexity that's around us.
You've stated that so beautifully. Just a quick question. I know there are a lot of people out there that would like to improve their communication skills,
Mhm.
that would like to feel confident with their public speaking, and might be even interested in signing up for something like Toastmasters, but there's something that's preventing them. And I think I speak for quite a few people whom I know that have, that are shy to open up because they feel they'll be judged,
Mhm.
and they don't want to be judged. So that's what's keeping them from taking that first step. And a lot of people, that'll say, we don't want to make an excuse, but we really have issues with committing to something, and that's just another way of saying that I don't have the confidence to do this. What is
So
your advice to somebody like that? What benefits can one experience or get from being part of Toastmasters? So here I'm really hoping that everybody that's listening listens carefully and has an opportunity to consider this seriously, because I know it's life changing.
before you talk about committing time, right? And before I share about Toastmasters, I want to put it out there that I belong to. How many clubs do you think I belong to? I belong to 7 clubs. If I can make time for 7 clubs, you can make time for more.
That number has come down, by the way. I know that there was a time when you were part of 17 different organizations.
No. It's just 7. But I will say 17 different organizations, maybe, but 7 Toastmasters clubs. With that aside, I will say this. We focus on communication and we focus on self-leadership. So within Toastmasters, right, for anyone who is out there, for anyone who is thinking about, is this right for me? Just like anything else, I'm thinking, is this right for me? Is that right for you? Is this job right for me? Is this lamp right for my desk? Just like that, if you're saying, is Toastmasters right for me? There's only one way to know, is to come in, right? Is to come in and make a small commitment. Now, I will tell you something beautiful about Toastmasters is everyone in a meeting room, everyone in a club is just like you and me. We are here to learn. We are here to learn from others. We are here to learn to communicate without having the fear of being judged. And I want to repeat that because if I judge you today, guess what? When I speak tomorrow, what can I expect? That you will judge me. So there is really no judgment in Toastmaster. There is only positive reinforcement and empowerment with the constructive commentary on how you and I can be better when we come back the next time we speak. So with that, it is a self-paced, self-directed program that is truly, truly whole in itself, that brings aspects of, hey, I'm really afraid to, how can I stay on point? How can I decrease what we call ums and ahs and these things that hold us back? It might seem very trivial that someone's counting your ums and ahs, but they are truly these obstacles or disfluencies that are in our mind that come because our thought process is not clear. So how do we slow down to gather our thoughts? How do we articulate in a way that is meaningful and purposeful? How do we stay on time and don't outlive our welcome? How do we deliver a 3-minute and a 2-minute speech that is impromptu to a 45-minute keynote to a 3-hour workshop? We work together. That's the beautiful part of it. And there is no pressure to deliver at a certain time, at a certain pace, or anything at all. So this is self-paced, self-directed, empowering way to help ourselves. So I say for anyone listening, whether you're impressed with somebody who you think as a memorable speaker or a motivational speaker or someone who has risen within the ranks within your company or the community, I say they did not get there by chance, although they make it look very easy. I'm not saying everyone who gets there is a Toastmaster, but I am saying you and I can get there for sure if we give ourselves a little bit of a chance and let Toastmasters pass through us in our life experience.
Right. And also, I believe that there is some level of preparation for every Toastmasters meeting that, also helps people learn along the way. So it's not just you are expected to randomly come up with all these speeches. No. There's a lot of preparation that goes in.
There's a lot of theory and then project. I mean, there is a lot of theory and resources. There is a lot of theory and there are a lot of resources available to help us get to that point. And within any club and even in the Toastmasters world in general, there's tons of mentorship. right? So we are individual mentors, group mentors, club mentorship. All of this is available to anyone who is coming and asking, how can I grow? How can I get to that next step? How can I find my voice? How can I find my words to start with, right? Find your words first and your voice next. Your independent voice, but then we can start with the words first.
Yeah. And communication is such a great skill to have, not just in your personal lives, but also in your professional lives. It's something that is indispensable. I think this has been a great conversation. It's just amazing how much I walk away admiring you and learning from you every single time. And I yet feel that there is so much more to discover, and we can go on and on. But I truly appreciate you coming, making the time, and sharing your journey, your experience, just being there, enriching all of us in the ways that you do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link to the Toastmasters, because I think a lot of people who are interested in listening to this might be interested and will definitely benefit from this conversation.
Absolutely. And they're, I welcome their connection. Anyone who wants to learn more, every club culture is different. I myself, like I said, I'm part of many clubs, corporate and community. I'm happy to share whatever it is and connect them with either a club that meets physically or the club that meets online. The only silver lining to this whole pandemic business that we've been through these past 3.5 years is that we are now able to globally connect with everyone across, like in 445 countries. So I've made new friends. I've made thousands of friends who were not my friends before 2000 and March in 2000, right? So that's the beautiful part. That's the only silver lining that I have discovered to this whole pandemic.
Absolutely. I think it's literally opened up the world for us, right? And in just a click of a mouse, right? Well, I thank you so much. I hope you keep going strong, and I just hope that you continue to spread this positivity, the energy that you have, and continue to be such a great resource for our community. Thank you, Shravanti. It was a pleasure to connect with you, and thank you for coming and being my guest on Sarva Gunn Sampann.
Thank you, my dear Anu. Thank you, everyone.